What's up, party people? Hey, sassies, how y'all doing? I just wanted to stop through right quick. As I always say, I'm not going to hold y'all, and then it'll end up being 30 minutes. But how are you guys doing? If you're new to my channel, I'm Sassy Diva JJ, aka JJ. So, welcome. And if you're returning, thank you for coming back. I do appreciate you guys. So, hope everybody's doing good. I stopped by to talk about The Third Wife by Lisa Jewell. I finished reading this yesterday. I believe I read it, y'all, in about 2 days. Started it in the evening, finished it another evening, so 2-3 days. It'll be on my Goodreads, the exact time frame. So, Lisa Jewell captured my attention this year when I read Then She Was Gone. So my daughter and I, Maya Pretty Minnie, we read Then She Was Gone. Really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it so much that I read other books by her. I read Watching You. I read The Family Upstairs. I read Girls in the Garden. I'm sure there may be another couple or two. We went on a whole Lisa Jewell binge there for a while. I don't own any of her books. All the books are from a library. And I am adding some to my Kindle. So anyway, really loved Then She Was Gone. I really did. And so like I said, I started reading books. Now, when I got to The Girls in the Garden, it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. Then She Was Gone, got a whole 5 stars. Loved it. It had twists, turns, all of that. It was a little different the way the characters went. So what I noticed was, I read one of her newer books. So Then She Was Gone was a little newer. The Family Upstairs, which there's going to be a sequel, or there is already a sequel to The Family Upstairs. I haven't read it, but I, am going to. So, like I said, I like me some Lisa Jewell. I'm becoming almost I know a lot about her books. So, y'all, just as when I read Girls in the Garden, I wished I had read it first. I wish I had read that older release, the book that was older as far as publication. I just wish I had read it prior. So she's one of these authors, in my opinion, that ages like fine wine as far as writing. Now, by me being a writer, I do know that just because something is released, let's say in 2015, that doesn't, and then something else is released in 2020, the 2020, maybe I wrote that first. So it just depends. Editing, proofreading, tightening it up, etc., could cause the book to come out later. So I am aware of that. But actually, the books read like this one was written first. And then here's other books that I enjoyed more. So this one, The Third Wife, copyright date 2015, and it reads like one of her earlier works. I did not enjoy this. I did not enjoy this as much as some of her other books. I don't know. It's between a 2.5 and 3 stars. And as much as I respect her writing and love her, I don't say that lightly. Now, if I give a book a 3 stars, that doesn't mean don't read it or it sucked. No, that means that it just didn't blow me over. Maybe it got slow. You know, it was things about the writing. Now you could pick it up, read it, and enjoy it. This what really wasn't for me, or maybe if I had read it prior. So what I'm trying to say is, if you get on the Lisa Jewell bandwagon, do yourself a favor, read some of her earlier works first. That way you won't tend to be underwhelmed. And it just makes sense. It just makes sense. It just makes sense. I typically do that, but like I said, by me getting the books from the library, we just kind of snatched the book. Then she was gone. We were like, oh, I've heard of this. And so my daughter and I brought it home and we read it and just loved it. Couldn't put it down. So I wouldn't say, I'm not telling you to read that first as her first work. Read her older titles if you're the type that you like an author and then you want to read their other books, like most readers do. I've been doing that since I was a kid. What is it? Beverly Cleary, Ramona and the Pest, Ramona this, remember. So we do that. We tend to want to read all of their work. So when you read the earlier titles like The Third Wife, The Girls in the Garden, understand, yeah, those stories are good. I know I gave Girls in the Garden 3 stars. It doesn't mean I wouldn't recommend it. I'm glad I read it, you know, but it did not do much for me as far as just, you know, page turner. Can't wait to see what happens next, what's going on. No, and just how this was. So when you read her earlier works first, just know that, hey, it gets better. Let me read these. Okay, these are good, and you may love them. Maybe they're there for you. Maybe they're for you. This read, for instance, this Third Wife, this read like literary fiction. And by me knowing I'm reading this author, Lisa Jewell, I'm waiting for, you know, my daughter read it first. And she said, oh, this is comical to me. She finds the weirdest things comical though. So take that with a grain of salt. And, which I love her for that. The more you can laugh, the more you can just find humor, the healthier we'll all be. So, but I was waiting for, you know, what's the twist? Who did what? What's the big? So as I'm reading it, I'm suspicious of everyone in the book. Who did it? Who did what? Did it really happen? Yeah. So after I read it, and sort of towards the middle or something, I told my daughter, I said, oh, I know who did this. I know who did that. This is this. I know I got this. And of course, she knew not to spoil it or anything. So as I kept reading, now this book is 326 pages. So I remember I was on about page 183, or was it 280 something? No, because that would have been, I was in approximately around 200. I told myself I should have written it down, but I started thinking, oh, I think I know, you know. So my whole point is I spent all my time trying to turn this book into something it just was not. Now, I take issues with a lot of people doing the same thing. They'll, you know, a lot of readers here on BookTube. I read this book, but I couldn't see myself doing that. Why are you trying to see yourself doing something in a fiction book anyway? I mean, really? If you read a book about a husband, maybe he's cheating, maybe the wife is, maybe this, maybe that, and you stop and ask yourself, tell yourself, I don't know if I like that because I can't picture myself. I don't read books to start trying to have that book reflect what I would do or how my life is going. I'm reading the book for the story. So I often take issue with that anyway. So I use other people's opinions and ratings with a grain of salt, because when I hear things like, I wouldn't have, not that maybe a story wasn't believable because, oh, I can't see myself being like that. More so that the subject matters and topics, oh, now I didn't really like that because the man was, playing two women against each other. They had a kid out of wedlock or whatever, whatever. It's like, well, I'm not understanding. It's a fiction book, number one. And so you're reading it for the entertainment. I'm reading it for the entertainment, just the drama, the thriller, the mystery, or if it's not mystery, the psychological thriller aspect, the romance. And yes, a lot of times romances would be different than what we would care about or do in real life. So I never tried to do that. Put my, I'm not like that person, so I didn't like that book. To me, that's being immature. I never even did that when I was young, when I was reading in 13, 12, 10, 11. I can't see myself reading a folktale, for instance, and saying, well, I can't see myself taking three coins for a bag of this. Okay, it's for entertainment. Let all of that baggage go that you bring to a book. Leave it at the door. Take the book for what it's worth. It doesn't have to describe your life. No one should be judging you because you're reading that book and thinking, oh, you must be like that, or you must condone that because you're reading this book. For real. So you're limiting yourself. You're limiting learning about different situations. The stories they'll have situations. Just like watching a movie, watching a soap opera, going to a comedy show, or what. Don't limit be open-minded. Open your mind. So I said all that to say, I still knew I was reading a Lisa Jewell book, The Third Wife, and I'm waiting for a twist. She's so good in some of her books at these plot twists, the unexpected, the surprise, you think you're reading this story, whoop, no, it's this. She's good at that. That's what attracted me to her, and then she was gone. The Family Upstairs, I love that aspect in it. I even really enjoyed I Found You, and I enjoyed Watching You. I enjoyed those books as well, really enjoyed them. Even when I was getting, you guys, I kid you not, I was getting to the last few pages. So, and me and my daughter, before I get to that, by the time in her books, when you get to part three does not play, typically. Part 3 is not playing with you. Okay? I got to part 3 and I'm like, okay, this is something getting ready to jump off. It's going to jump off. And then there's even a part 4 in here. So I feel like I was on like a merry-go-round or some type of climbing machine, and then it would come back down a little. Then I start climbing towards the climax in the book or in the story or the revelation. What was revealed in here was something that it was an okay revelation. it was something that okay. Once of this, I'm trying not to give spoilers. What was revealed in here was a revelation. One of the things was a revelation. It was revealed towards the very end of the book. I had already had this person as a potential doer of this thing. So it wasn't really a big surprise about that, y'all. But she had characters in here that you really were wondering, what did you do? Oh, first you said that your name is this, that, the third. What's going on with you? I don't know. Let me read the back, y'all. Adrian Wolfe is an admired architect known for his charm, his effortless good looks, his enviable relationships with his 2 ex-wives and 5 children. Married for the 3rd time to Maya, he has forever been the glue holding everyone together. But now he's a grief-stricken widower, alone in Maya's apartment, except for her cat and her memories. Now, I did not read the synopsis. I tend to not, ergo my explanation about going into books blind, not wanting it to be like the last book you read, not trying to make it into something it's not. So I didn't read the blurb or much of it. I might have read the first sentence or something. I didn't. And I also am not a fan of prologues. Your girl would skip a prologue like it was a hot skillet. Are you gonna touch it or no? No. I'll skip a prologue like it's some tacks on the floor. You gonna skip those? You gonna jump over them? Yeah, I don't want to cut my foot. I'll skip a prologue because typically the prologue ends up being somewhere else in the book. It gives spoilers. No, thank you. So, I don't know. I guess, now here's part 3. So I should have known. A lot of times her part 3 isn't this thick. I don't know, y'all. But I was underwhelmed. I take nothing away from her. You know, to write a book is an endeavor. It's a journey. It's you do it from your heart. She even says that. She says this book. So this is the acknowledgments. Don't look at it. This is the acknowledgments. So this book was conceived, written, and rewritten almost entirely alone. Every time I tried to explain what it was about, people would look at me strangely and say, oh, right. So I stopped talking about it, shut all the blinds, and just got on with it. Okay. I don't know, maybe it could be me. So don't hold me to this. Read it, but go into it. That's a good way to do it. Go into it not expecting a thriller, not expecting a grand mystery, not expecting a flip or plot twist. Do not expect that. Seriously, go into it with just reading a book. Like if we wanted to pick up Madame Bovary, or we wanted to just pick up a book that wasn't, oh, I'm a reader. She writes psychological thrillers. Her books have plots and twists. Don't do that to you. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just open it up, start reading it. It's of course definitely about somebody who has 3 wives. The back already tells you a little about that. And it says, full of brilliant psychological nuance and a family of characters you'll never forget. The Third Reich is a gripping story about a man seeking the truth behind the facade in the broken pieces left behind. So maybe if I had read that, I would not have been expecting as much. But when I see psychological, I'm wanting something to play with my mind. You know, play with my mind. I should be, what? Ooh. It was none of that. I didn't get like, oh, I kept waiting for something. Things happen. So don't get me wrong. There were developments, there were questions. Some of the questions were answered, but it wasn't this major, like a then she was gone. Not like a family upstairs. Not like a I found you, watching you. She hadn't gotten to that point yet. So even the second paragraph. Then one day Adrian finds a shocking email and so begins his search to discover what really happened to his young wife. And you would think that, you would be like, oh, So there are things that happen. I read it, I don't know, towards when I was going towards the end, I was like, I could have been reading something else. But definitely when you really appreciate an author's work, you will typically, read the net. Even if someone told you this book is not good, that book, you really have been intrigued with this author's work. This author has blew your mind at times with the twist, what she's come up with, how she plays with characters, the character building. So, I don't know, y'all. Anyway, this was a book I read. It's now July. This is going to be one of my July reads. It's going to get a 2.5 or a 3-star. I don't want to give it a 2, and in Goodreads, there's no 2.5. So out of 5 stars, this is most likely going to end up getting a 3-star, or it might get a 2-star after I think about it. I just finished it last evening, and it's midday now. So yeah, and you can tell my feelings are hurt. You know how you will get your feelings hurt when you were expecting a lot because this is your author, something about to jump off, and that's probably it. I probably had too many expectations for a book that you wrote prior to writing some of the other books that I really, really enjoyed. So it's to me, it's like literary fiction. There's some bumps and some you riding and it's a bump here, bump there. There's curiosity, definitely. There are children in here. The children are, she built them in a way. A lot of the characters, there's no in-depth. She does a good job of describing them, describing how they would match with the MC Adrian, how they would look as a married couple, what their dynamic was. But as far as other things about them or delving a little deeper, no. So she gave you what you needed to carry on in the story, but and too much of getting into all these characters would have just weighed the book down. So I agree with that, but I don't know, y'all. So I read it. I'm glad I read it. I got it, like, for instance, I hate to say I got it under my belt. I did it. But even as I was reading it, I was like, well, when is the juice? When is it getting ready to get, And I know my poor daughter, because I would text her, oh, I know what happened. I know how this is going to turn up. And of course, she wouldn't say anything. And I love the cover, though. This looks like a place where families would gather. We had a good meal, I love the china. And it just, a simple meal, but you can see distinct family around it. So, I don't know, y'all. And guess what? My daughter, she's finally, I was complaining so much. She's at the end. So I finished it last evening, and she said, well, she let me talk about it for a while. And then she said, well, did you not get this part? You didn't get it? So when she said that, I went to the very page she was talking about towards the end and read it out loud to her, only for her to find out something she thought she enjoyed about the book. That wasn't it. I went to the page. She thought it was telling her something. When I read it out loud, then she realized, oh. So she had found this passage, kind of misread it a little bit, which was easy to do the way it was written, but I enjoyed the way it was written. You just have to be real mindful. But then she was like, oh, well, that's why I thought maybe I'm going to change my rating. So we were trying to give this some spark, like you trying your best to put some spark in it. So spark it has none, which is a little different from Lisa Jewell. So anyway, I still love, I still will read her books. I'm still a fan. I'm all of that. I love her work, but every book cannot be a 5-star, or oh, it blew me away, or it just had me gasping. Some books do. I'm like sitting there like for 5 or 10 minutes. I'm like, what? All that didn't happen in here, because either you already kind of guessed it or left it as an option, and it just, or what you were thinking would have been far more dramatic and made it more of a psychological thriller. And then, no, that ain't it either. So it was disappointing. I'm just going ahead and say I was disappointed. I'm still most likely going to give it a 3-star. I don't think 2 stars. I think it deserves at least 3. It had plenty of characters. It was easy to keep the characters straight. It did have a flowing story. It just wasn't like a brilliant book, because you left me, I'm about glad that I'm done with them. Like, I'm so glad I'm done with y'all and y'all's families and all of that. Goodbye. So when a book leaves me like that, you definitely aren't getting more than 3 stars. So my next read that Maya Pretty Minnie and I are reading together, As Old as Time, it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's by Liz Braswell. This is a library book. So we're starting off this together today. And I'm also still reading through The Final Strife. I'm also reading Ashes. It's the 3rd book in the Torment. I don't have my Kindle because I'm reading that on Kindle. But there's a book called Torment 2, and then this 3rd one is Ashes. And I cannot you already know I can't remember the author's name. But I discussed that book in another video, y'all. And I will come back and discuss that series as well. But I'm reading some of that because I took a little off of here. I took a little teeny break for a few hours and started on Ashes. And then I couldn't decide whether I was going to finish Final Strife and then read this. But by this being a library book, I fell into the trap, going and get it read, because you have to read this and some others. So Final Strife is waiting. If you read Final Strife straight through, it shouldn't take you long, but I keep stopping. I'm thoroughly enjoying the Final Strife. So I'm out of here, y'all. I'll check you guys later. Thanks for checking in, and the mother-daughter duo will come back and tell you guys how we enjoyed As Old as Time. Peace, y'all.